9:13, welcome back. They've been called everything from patriots to hobbits by John McCain to unfit to govern by Chris Van Hollen, and Tea Party conservatives came close to derailing the debt limit bill. So, did they flex muscle in the recent debt battle, or did they doom their own movement, or is it something in between the two? Joining us now with a look at how Tea Party activists will be affected by the debt debacle is Scott Montgomery, editor-in-chief of Roll Call. Thanks for coming in. Good to see you. Good to meet you.
Glad to be here.
You know, I'll put the broad question out there. There's probably no simple answer, but the Tea Party, with what's happening now, with the debt crisis being averted, it looks like, with the Senate vote later on, the Tea Party, are they winners or losers in this?
You know, the thing we have to keep reminding ourselves about the Tea Party is that they are really not a monolithic group. In fact, we have a story today on the front page of Roll Call where we talk to a bunch of different Tea Party groups. There are some that are very happy with what happened. In fact, are going to send letters of thanks to Speaker Boehner. But there are others who are still pretty angry and don't feel at all like winners. They're looking at doing some protesting later this summer when members go back home to their districts, just like they did during the health care debate. Raise some, questions during town halls and such about, particularly with Republicans, why they voted for this bill.
And I know some of them are unhappy with the fact that there's no balanced budget amendment attached to this bill. That would have been something, would have been very hard to get, obviously, but that's what some of their dissatisfaction is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things that, if you recall, it all happened so soon. Just a few days ago, the Speaker added a balanced budget element to his bill, which passed the House, but was immediately shot down in the Senate. There just isn't support now in the Senate to do a balanced budget amendment. And keep in mind, then you have to also get that ratified by the states. So we're quite a few steps away from being able to actually do such a thing.
The Tea Party, you make a good point that they're not this monolithic group. It's a relatively small group. However, they are a relatively new group that really seems to be driving the debate in many ways and driving the Republican agenda, for better or worse, when it comes to certain Republican members who, some of them go along with them, some feel like you're really tying our hands here. So they've had quite an amazing amount of, they've made quite an impression, it seems to me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I think getting back to your original question about are they winners or losers, I think there is no doubt that the most conservative element of the Republican Party, which is where you find the Tea Party, had an awful lot of influence on the debate over this debt ceiling and the outcome of that deal. It's hard not to look at what was done and say, well, this is something that would not have been without the Tea Party's involvement. And if nothing else, they certainly get to take some pleasure in the fact that they've given liberals in the Democratic Party another reason to be angry with President Obama.
What happens next? You say some of them may have these protests in some of the members' home districts. On a broader scope, what would be the next battle for them?
Well, the next battle is coming right around the corner, which is going to be more spending. We have the federal government is now going to be, we're going to have appropriations bills coming up in Congress before the end of the fall. We're going to have more spending bills done. There are going to be a lot of debates over that. And so we're going to see this spending fight is going to continue, not to mention the fact that the debt deal that was struck, kicks things down till later this fall for this committee, the super committee, and there's going to be a lot of debating on that one.
You're very plugged into Capitol Hill. How do you think Congress overall comes out of this? I sense amongst many people just on the street that you talk to in everyday conversation, anger and frustration that this battle was so bloody, that it went right up to the deadline.
Oh yeah, I think that poll after poll shows that nationally people would have preferred a more, we'll say, moderate response to the debt crisis. They find it hard to believe, I mean, I ran into this everywhere I went. They find it hard to believe that we had to bring this thing down to the wire. What's interesting to remember about, particularly with polling, is you see this frustration kind of nationally. But then what happens at individual local levels, in particular congressional districts, is where groups like the Tea Party are able to be very influential. That's why there may be a lot of frustration with how this whole thing happened, and there may be a focus on some of the Tea Party for how they handled it, but that doesn't mean they won't help get more Republican Tea Party members elected later.
Very interesting. Scott, thank you very much for coming in and sharing some insight on this. We do appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Thanks very
Roll
much.
call. Now, meanwhile,